Remember, everything you see in this game is working as intended. Lately it feels like a lot of updates in this game are lock and key, where there is an obvious dedicated way to interact with something. If you use this type of item against this specific creature, you will get rewarded. If you don't, then you will suffer because that's the unintended way of playing the game. But with every single update, there has been less and less expansion on exploration and experimentation. And the game kind of just been pushed more towards a streamlined method of play. Experimentation is kind of the bread and butter of this game. So much so that it used to be the tagline in which it was to experience a world filled with science and magic, taking the concept of science and experimentation and creating many different ways to figure out how to survive. Now it just kinda doesn't feel like that anymore. It feels like there is a need to feel polished and easy to understand. Keep in mind the DST is still cryptic as ever because there are things that you'll never find out unless someone tells you. But I feel that polish kind of ruins a lot of the fun of the game. There's less of a need to spend time experimenting when everything is already given for you. Updates as of late do work and they do the specific thing they're looking to do, but they also don't really do anything. Sometimes they'll even have an item do something extra, but it doesn't even get used in that way because it's not really its intended use. And that has kind of been a big thing in the game. So much so that it's become a meme that things are working as intended. No more is this illustrated by the concept of fire suppressors. The fire suppressor is just a fancy name for ice flingomatic. These items are probably the most broken thing in the game because of what they do. The ice flingomatic is a very simple concept. It is a machine that throws snowballs. Those snowballs will rehydrate plants and protect them from wildfires. This was used to protect the base from summer's effects. The snowballs from the ice flingomatic also have a property of being able to freeze creatures. This, however, is only a side effect and not really the main gimmick of the ice flingomatic, because in order to actually get this to work in your favor, the player must make a contraption to enable flingos to target an area where a creature would be hit by the ice ball. This is where fire farms ended up occurring in single player Don't Starve. What this was an area in which you would light up some walls, and because of the way fire spread in single player, you would have an endless loop of fire and freeze in one area. A creature would be stun locked in the fire zone thanks to the flingo while also taking ticks of fire damage. This method was established in Don't Starve Together. However, instead of it being an area that would do damage, it instead became just a freeze zone. Players would use a star collar and place items around the star collar to cause them to burn, leading for creatures to be frozen, and you'll be able to take care of them as you see fit. This effect would be amplified based off of how many flingos were in range, because every single flingo would throw a snowball, and you would be able to stun lock certain creatures because of freezing. Thing is though, this takes a lot of resources and setup to even get working, and you still need to do the damage yourself. Ever since they added the ocean and boats, a new method has been used to be able to direct flingos on where to throw its snowballs. And frankly, I think this is just amazing, because it is an adaptation of old technology to be fit with the newest updates of the game, making this item be more viable because no longer do you need multiple flingos in order to have it be useful in player-built contraptions. Thanks to how the game works and how the flingo manages its projectiles, you can manipulate the projectiles using boats, because the flingo takes into consideration the boat's speed when it's throwing a snowball. This is so that if a boat catches fire and you're sailing fast, the flingo can land snowballs on the boat. Previously, flingos never needed to calculate this because they were just often stationary, but because boats move, they need to be able to figure out a way to make flingos work on them. So they created this method for flingos to work on moving platforms. Because of how this works though, a flingo on a boat that is moving will actually miss things that are on land, because it's calculating the boat's movement speed, and the snowball will miss the object trying to hit on land. And since the object was not hit by a snowball, the flingo will still keep throwing snowballs, making a freeze area without the need of having things to be caught on fire. This kinda just shows how amazing the flingomatic actually is, and how creative people have gotten with this simple item. That its main intention is to protect the base, but because it was given a unique quirk of being able to freeze creatures, people have used it for so much more than its initial design. Now let's look at another structure that's similar to the flingo, where it has a main function and also a strange side function. However, the way they established it completely ruins its viability as an item. That is the water pump. It's basically a flingomatic for boats. It's one that you don't need to fuel, you just need to operate it and it will target flyers around it. It seems to work similarly as a flingo, but it only targets things that are going to catch on fire. But a thing I find strange is that they made the water pump's projectiles also water farm tiles. So this item has a great concept of being a water sprinkler, but it absolutely sucks at being a water sprinkler because it doesn't target plants. I thought maybe I cracked the system for the water pump by finding out that flingomatics are affected by boat speed, and the water pump is kinda like the flingomatic. I thought they would work the same where you can force the water pump to water an area by directing it with a fire pit, but it just doesn't work that way. The water pump does not take into consideration boat speeds in its projectile. It just somehow is able to perfectly lob its projectile at whatever it needs to throw its projectile at. So unlike the flingo where you're on a boat that's moving and something on land is on fire, the water pump will not miss extinguishing that fire. And you know what? Some people will argue that that is better than what the flingo does, because the water pump is able to do the mechanic that it's intended to, which is taking out fires. That means it is a more consistent item. But because of it being a more consistent item, it can't be exploited to use its other intended mechanics. That makes it a horrible item that's not even used. And it really just kind of an argument that permeates through the Don't Starve community, because there's a lot of intended and not intended stuff that works within the game, and based on who you talk to, they will change things that will break a lot of stuff because they feel it's not intended. I'm looking at you, people who hate statues to block creatures, but there's still intended mechanics that are completely gutted because they are not given the chance to shine. I know for sure many people would love to get a water pump if it meant they can use it as a sprinkler for their farming. It is intended, yet it's also not intended at the same time. And that's really the problem of the current way the development works in DST. There has to be intention behind it, otherwise it's just not considered.